Hello. First of all, I hope you are safe and at home. Today, Daniel, Natalie, and I, Guadalupe, are glad to be here participating in the Segundo Encuentro Multidisciplinario Estudiantes Universitarios. We are going to present our poster where we share things from our practice. We divided our poster into two areas. The first contains the background, activities, platforms, and strategies we use with our students. The second contains a KWL chart and a SWOT analysis we did together for this poster. It is important to mention that these two activities were carried out as homework for the subject Práctica de la Enseñanza 2, but we decided to do it again in order to analyze the work done in our practice. So let's start. The title of our poster is Online English Teaching, Our Experience as Pre-Service Teachers. I am going to start by saying information from the schools where we work. We were working with 5th and 6th year students from Colegio Latino and Centro Escolar Esposa. Both schools are private elementary schools. In these schools, language teaching is of utmost importance since for them it is essential that the students meet the standards required for a certification by the end of their courses. Now I am going to talk about the activities. Even though we were asked to follow the topics that the book dictated, our professors encouraged us to be creative and transform the tasks in the book into more fun and dynamic activities. We also made use of memory games because these types of games are very entertaining for young learners. We also used Jeopardy as an activity, and although we were not able to use it ourselves with the students, the professor made use of the game with them later. Other activities we used were reordering, filling in the gaps, word search, and online worksheets, because despite the fact that the book already handles certain activities, we consider that using this type of activities, the content was presented in a more interesting way. Finally, we created a poster in Canva for an activity where the children had to complete information to sell a product. And now the platforms. At Colegio Latino, we mainly use the platform that the book dictated in order to show the contents of each class and do the exercises together. Within the platforms that we use, the one used most frequently was PowerPoint, since for each class we designed a presentation in which the activities and topics we had to cover were included. We use Canva to create the poster that I mentioned before. Another platform we used was Quizzes, in which our classmate Natalie created quizzes after every unit in order to reinforce what had been learned. Xlearning, Wordwall, and Puzzle were also used in order to create interactive activities. Finally, all these platforms help us to make our materials and activities more interesting.
Now I'm going to explain the strategies that we implement in our virtual classes. First, we use a magic box in order to get the children's attention. In this box, we had folded pieces of paper with the names of all students in class. If there were not any volunteers for the activities, they will be chosen from the name that we randomly picked out from the box. And in this way, we think that the class progressed faster, and we didn't get stuck in an activity in case that there were not participants. Another strategy that we implement in class, it was creating a quiz at the end of each lesson to solve the students' doubts in case that they have, and see their progress and what they learned in the lesson. So now here we have the KWL chart. A KWL chart is an activity we did in class in order to organize information before, during, and after we teach our classes. In this case, we did it about teaching young learners. This chart contains 3 columns, which are what we knew, what we wanted to know, and what we learned. First, it is what we knew column. So during the major, we learned that young learners have approximately an attention span of 6 minutes. Another thing that we learned is that teachers need to be creative and dynamic in the activities implemented in class. Because the students' attention can be attracted through this kind of activities depending on their age. Another thing is that as teachers, it is highly important to be patient and open to questions because we know that young learners and children have many questions. Also, English teachers must show enthusiasm when teaching. And finally, we learned that young learners learn better when they can relate or associate information or content to themselves or familiar aspects. But before to start teaching young learners, there were many aspects and things that we wanted to know to have better virtual classes. For example, we wanted to learn more strategies to make a class more interesting and dynamic since the classes will be virtual and the students were going to get bored faster than normal. So we wanted more strategies to that challenge. Also, we want to know some more platforms to create more engaging material and activities and thus not use the same material and platforms as always. And finally, we wanted to learn more methods and approaches to using class depending on the students' needs.
Now I am going to talk to you about what we learned, and that section is right over here. Okay, so what did we learn from this experience? Well, the fact that both of our practicums had to be carried out in an online modality was a bit challenging, but we still managed to apply what we learned with the children. We have learned that gamification is important in any context because it encourages students to participate more. Another thing that we learned was that we shouldn't underestimate the students' capacity or knowledge. Many of them have taught us that they are capable of performing pretty much any activity, no matter how challenging it is. It is also worth remembering that no student is a blank slate. Everybody is able to contribute in one way or another. We also learned that it was difficult for some young children to understand abstract and deductive examples. So that's why we try to find examples that were easy to understand and that were as close to reality as possible. Besides that, we realized that children needed more repetition in order to learn some of the topics effectively. And finally, teaching young learners showed us that online teaching is possible as long as teachers are prepared. We also have to remember that learning happens differently in every student. So we don't have to be afraid of trying new things. We don't have to be afraid of using games in the classroom, for example, because nowadays it is a skill that certainly should not be overlooked, because it is essential to make use of different approaches according to the student's needs. So overall, as we can see here, this opportunity to work with young learners has been challenging, but it has also been enriching, and it has helped us to get rid of previous fears that initially affected our confidence. So now I would like to show you our SWOT analysis, which is right here. Okay, so SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. let's start with the first one, which is strengths. So, thanks to our previous experiences in other schools, we felt pretty confident in regard to our attitude towards classes. We are people who are open to questions, and we have proved to ourselves that we are capable of making effective explanations. In contrast, we thought that our creativity still had room for improvement. In fact, we had to work with some colleagues who made interactive and striking presentations, so that's how we realized that we needed to improve on that. And well, in this part, this also applies to our speaking skills, because we wanted to have classes that were more fluent. And well, another point that was that some of us needed to work on our patience, because we could get stressed quickly. So that was an important thing that we wanted to get out of the way. Next, we have our opportunities. In this part, we consider that we saw many opportunities in learning more about online resources that could potentially help us work with and assess creatively. Gamification is successful at all levels, and in today's world, knowing how to use all of these resources is of great importance, because online education will be with us from now on. It's not something that we are going to get rid of very soon. Finally, I think we can all agree that the pandemic is currently our biggest threat. Online teaching is fairly new to most of us, but we can take advantage of it, as it has helped us a lot in lockdown. And many students have found out that they learn even better than when they had face-to-face classes. Nevertheless, we were also worried about not creating activities that caught our students' attention or activities that were difficult to understand.
Honestly, at the beginning we didn't feel motivated to teach virtual classes because we thought that the students were not going to understand the classes, because they were not going to pay attention, or very few attend to the classes. But to our surprise, everything was different than we expect. We could establish good rapport with our students, and also they paid attention in class, and we could see that they were learning a lot with us. So here was when we started to feel motivated, because we started to enjoy teaching classes, to enjoy planning and creating materials. We could say that for this reason we think that motivation is a highly important factor in teaching, because without it maybe our performance was not gonna be enough, and that could have affected the students' learning process. And that's it. Thank you for your attention.